Good morning, everybody. Well, it is Saturday, 10 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Dr.Meagan from Windsor Chiropractic and Wellness, and she's here to help us today with stretching that we need. And if you guys have any questions for Dr. Meagan, please, I want you guys to comment in. She can see all your questions, and she'll respond and help you out throughout the 30-minute program here. How you doing, Megan?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me. I want to start off by giving a big thank you to Krista and Brandon and the staff at Tsagaris here for all the work you guys have been doing. I know as a member, we appreciate all of the virtual classes so much. It's been keeping us all sane at home, and I think everyone who is out there on the front lines, it gives them a little outlet when they get home at night to keep their normal routine. So a big thank you to you guys and all of the staff, and we very much appreciate it.
I don't think your parents appreciate all the jumping upstairs at the workouts.
Yeah, no, my parents, they're a little over my jumping workouts in the apartment upstairs, but hey, we got to keep them going.
That's okay. So what do we
So today I have lined out a little program for different stuff that people can do at home for stretching and some mobility work. All easy things that we can do at home. What you'll need is you'll just need a ball of some sort, whether it be a tennis ball, a golf ball. Even I know some people might have some wine corks laying around from being self-isolated. A wine cork's not ideal, but it'll work. So we're going to do some of that today. A lot of it is going to be hip focused today based on some of the questions we've received and questions I've received from patients during this time while I've been closed down. We're going to kind of start from the bottom and work our way up. So we'll start with feet. Oh, and then another thing, we're keeping track of all of the members who are tuning in to this, and all of those members will receive, once everything reopens, you'll receive a free mobility ball as a thank you for joining in with us today. So what we'll start with is I'll have everyone, if you do have shoes on at home, we'll have you slide those off. And what we're going to start with is we're going to start with rolling our feet. So the feet are kind of they're the base of everything. And a lot of us are constricted every day to different shoes, whether they be dress shoes or kind of bulkier running shoes or boots or whatever it is that you're working in every day. And our feet over time get really tight and weakened. So one of the things that I've incorporated into my daily routine is rolling the bottoms of my feet. It helps release a lot of the fascial tension, any of the tight muscles and things like that. I have a ball at my office, I have one at home, I keep one in my gym bag. It's a really inexpensive way to kind of have a little treatment tool with you all the time. Sometimes when I'm working at my desk, I have the ball under there and I'll be rolling it there. So we'll start with that today. So everybody can grab your ball. And you can start with whichever foot you want. So you can do it seated or standing. Okay. So I'll do the standing version. Krista can do the seated version there. So all you're going to do is you're just going to roll the bottom of your foot with the ball. You don't need a ton of pressure. You'll see even just a light pressure is enough to make it a little bit tender. I know this is one of Krista's favorite stretches. So you want to make sure you give a lot of attention to the arches of the feet. This is where a lot of people will hold the tension. Some of us have some of us walk more on the insides of our feet, some of us walk more on the outsides of our feet. So depending on how your gait is, you might find you have more tension on the inside versus the outside. So you don't need to go super fast with that. You're not really doing much of a release, you're more just creating blood flow. So nice and slow, and apply more pressure in places that are a little more tense. If you have a tender spot, you can give it a little bit more pressure there and hold it there. Now the other thing you can do is you can go side to side.
I can't do that. That one's tender right here.
On the inside.
Oh.
And even you can kind of go out more on the inside. The other thing you can do is kind of give your heel a little, place your heel down on the ground and roll in and out, depending on how big the ball is that you're using and how big your foot is. I don't have the biggest feet, so it's a little bit tougher for me. Now one of the other things I do when rolling my feet is I'll start near the toes, and when I go down towards my heel, I actually give my big toe a lift, and that gives a little bit of an extra stretch there, and you'll feel it's a little bit more pressure. We can switch it over to the other foot, giving my soccer skills a little bit of a over
I can
here.
see all the questions coming in,
Okay.
Dr.Meagan. We'll try to get to all of those questions for you guys, so thanks so much.
And yeah, we'll give a little attention to the other foot as well.
I like this one here, like you
Side
can
to
really
side.
feel it. Maybe it's because I'm on my toes a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, this is a good one because whether you're on your feet all day at work or you're at a desk but you're wearing dress shoes, we're all going to have some tension in the bottom of the feet here. And a lot of people, you'll notice when you do a lot of the footwork here, you'll notice some of the calves will release, and you'll feel like you get a little bit more ankle motion from doing this as well. So this is a good, easy one that everyone can incorporate every day. Some comments coming in, people not realizing how sore their feet were.
It's true. It's like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is,
Does that mean we're going to get a lot more foot rubs?
I mean, we all have the times. So yeah, so that's a good one. So this is one, like I said, keep a ball in your gym bag at home, at your office, at your workplace. It's a good one that you can do every day, and while we have the time, it's a good one that you guys can incorporate into your daily routine. My foot challenge for everyone at home is because we are constrained to shoes so much of the time that our feet do weaken. While we are at home, let's try to walk a little bit more barefoot. Try doing some of your virtual workouts bare feet, and you're gonna get a different feel of the workout and see how your feet strengthen over time. So that could be a bit of our at-home challenge for your feet. So now we're gonna get into some of the stretching. So one of the questions I get asked all the time is, I want to be more flexible and mobile. So I want to start off by kind of giving a little bit of a difference between flexibility and mobility. So flexibility is your ability to lengthen your tissue. Being flexible doesn't mean that you're mobile. Those are two different things. Now there's some people that do have both, but mobility is your ability to control your flexibility. So it's your ability to actively control how you can lengthen your tissues. So we've all seen the people who can bring their nose to their knee, no problem, but how do they control it? That's what I'm more concerned with. So when we get into some of the stretching, I don't want anyone to force themselves into a position because they feel like that's how it should look and that's where they want to get. Where can you control your motion? What does your body feel comfortable in? Some of us live in a more tight body than others, and that's okay. When we get through the stretches, my stretch is going to look different than Krista's because our abilities are different, our flexibility is different, and that's okay. So I don't want anyone to force yourself into a stretch. Just listen to your body and do what feels comfortable. So the first stretch I want to get into is a hamstring stretch. The hamstring is one that I see a lot of people do in different ways, and I want to show you how to properly stretch your hamstring to get the most of it. I know Krista had mentioned her hamstrings are a little tight this week from all the classes she's been doing. So we want to make sure that you're doing it the right way and not irritating any nerves or anything like that, because that's a common thing that I see with the hamstring stretch. So the first one we're going to do is, if you have a couch near you, a chair, ottoman, a poof, whatever object you have that you can place your foot on. So I'll go with this, my back foot up. I think it might be a little easier for the camera. So you're going to place your foot up on whatever object. No matter how flexible you are, you don't really need a high object. Even if you can bring your knee to your nose, you don't need that high object. A couch is perfectly fine. Now, starting with the hamstring stretch, one of the things I always see is people will reach down and they'll grab their foot and they'll kind of crank it towards them. What you're doing there is you're actually tractioning your sciatic nerve, which can cause some irritation. So with the hamstring stretch, you actually want to keep your foot nice and loose. Now, one of the other things I always see is people, and myself included, do this sometimes.
Probably myself too.
Yeah, you kind of just flop forward into the stretch. What we want to do is you actually want to bring the leg that you're stretching, your front hip bone, you actually want to tuck it back. So you're facing your leg. And now what you're going to do is you're going to keep your torso nice and straight, and you're going to lean towards your hamstring.
That's it, right here.
And you're going to feel it more in the belly there. Now, some of you, if you're feeling the stretch behind your knee, you might be irritating the nerve a little bit. So what you're going to do is just give a slight bend to the knee. Same thing, keep that front hip bone back, and now lean towards your thigh. Wow. And now you're going to feel the difference in the belly there. In any of these stretches, you can hold anywhere from 30 seconds up to 2 minutes, whatever you're comfortable with. and you can kind of go a little bit deeper into it as time goes by. But yeah, the main thing here is you want to make sure the foot's relaxed and that you are tucking that front hip bone back on that side. So we are targeting that hamstring. And we'll hold this for a few more seconds.
Crazy stretch, eh?
Yeah, the hamstrings is one I find a lot of people, I think too, a lot of people right now are doing a lot more running outdoors, a lot of activities that they're not used to, so the hamstrings might be getting a little bit tighter than they're used to. I'll do the other side just to kind of balance things out. So we're not walking in a circle after this. So same thing, you're going to bring your foot up, foot nice and relaxed. You're going to tuck that front hip bone back, and you're going to lean towards. And you might notice one side's a bit tighter than the other. And we'll hold it for 30 seconds here.
I think that I'm such a left side kicker that maybe the base leg I'm overstretching because I'm kicking. And
Usually, yeah, it is the base leg. I find
Wow.
the base leg too, I'll find a lot of people have more tightness in their hip and stuff on that leg. Like I know for myself, like I've grown up playing soccer, and a lot of the girls that I grew up playing soccer with, their non-dominant leg is the hip. That's the tightest, is the one that's the tightest, because it's planted more. Good. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move into a series of hip stretches. Hips are one of the things I've got the most questions for from my patients who have been emailing me over the last couple weeks, as well as some of the members have been emailing quite a bit of hip questions. And with this time, maybe if we work on our hips every day, once the club's back open, maybe some of us might get close to kicking like Krista and Mallory.
maybe we're Mallory.
That's my goal, is to get closer to kicking like them. So we'll start with some of the hip stuff. Now, a lot of us have been working in kind of makeshift home offices and things like that, so we don't have our good desk setups. Some of us have been sitting a lot more, watching Netflix, which is fine. So we'll try to open up some of the hips a bit more than what we're used to. And these are all things that I would love for people to try to incorporate into their daily routine. Because we are going to go back to work, we are going to go back to our stuff, and the hips are always something that people kind of describe to me as being really tight. So I'm going to start with a standing hip flexor stretch, and I'm going to show you a variation of it kneeling as well. So you can put whichever foot forward that you want. So I'm going to put my left foot forward. Actually, I'm going to start first by explaining pelvic tilt, because a pelvic tilt is what's going to really make you activate this stretch, because I'm not as worried for how deep into it you can go, but how well you're activating in the stretch. So when we're looking at a pelvic tilt, we have an anterior pelvic tilt and a posterior pelvic tilt. So anterior pelvic tilt is when you take your front hip bone and you roll it forward like you're sticking your bum out. Now, a posterior pelvic tilt is where you're going to take your front hip bone and you're going to tuck it towards your belly button and tuck your tailbone under. So when we're doing these hip flexor stretches, we want to be in a posterior pelvic tilt. So we're bringing our front hip bone towards our belly button and we're tucking our tailbone under. So we'll keep that in mind when we do these hip flexor stretches. So first, we'll put our left foot in front. You can come up on your toe if you want. I'll go sideways and just like go forward here. So what we're going to do is we're going to now go into our posterior pelvic tilt. So we're going to bring our front hip bone up, so we're nice and neutral.
I just felt that all the way down here.
Yeah, so one of our main hip flexor muscles is a muscle called our rec fem, which is one of the quad groups. So when you stretch your hip flexors, you can actually you're going to actually be stretching a lot of the quad group as well, which is nice. So now what we're going to do is, now that you're in your posterior pelvic tilt, you can give a little squeeze of the glute to kind of keep yourself activated in that way. And you're going to lean into the front leg, keeping that posterior pelvic tilt. When you lean too far in and you start going into your back, you're losing. Someone's down trying to take the ball. You're going to lose that posterior pelvic tilt and go into an anterior. So we want to make sure you are engaged in that. And now to add a little bit of an extra stretch, you can bring your arm up and you're going to go into that hip flexor stretch. And you're going to feel that all in the front here, and you can even feel it a little bit into the
I'm
quad.
not even going deep into the stretch.
Yeah.
And
you're going to feel it quite a bit. That's a lot of people with a hip flexor stretch, they try to go super deep into the stretch, but you're not really engaged and you're not feeling it there. You really just need a slight motion to feel it. So we'll give this one a hold for 30 seconds.
want to tell everybody why we're all laughing is that Mel, her dog, keeps trying to steal the ball as she's trying to stretch.
And then we'll go to the other side. So same thing. Posterior pelvic tilt back.
Yep.
Good. And then you can raise the same arm and you're going to lean into it.
Crazy.
So this is a good one if you, like I said, if you're sitting all day at an office, like a lot of us don't have our regular office set up. Good. We'll give this one a hold. Same thing with this one. You can hold anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Good. Now I'm going to show you the same version kneeling. So same thing, you can go into a kneeling position. And same thing, you want to make sure that you have your posterior pelvic tilt. So you're going to bring that front hip bone up to your belly button. And same thing, like a lot of people when we do a hip flexor stretch, they go right into that position, which you don't necessarily need to do because you're not engaged. You just need a slight motion. So we're going to give that pelvic tilt, and we're going to go forward.
I can already feel it.
And you can bring that arm up to get an extra stretch. Now, one of my favorite things to do with the kneeling version that I give this exercise to a lot of my patients is I call it my hip flexor around the world stretch. So you take your front leg and you're going to change the angle of it, but you're going to keep your body facing forward. So you're going to get different angles of the hip. You can get a little bit more of the inside of the thigh and things like that with that stretch. So what we can do is we can try changing the angle of the front foot, same thing, posterior pelvic tilt. You can bring your arm up and you're going to lean in, and now you're going to feel it a little bit more on the inside of that hip.
This will also make me kick faster, I hope.
And you can change the angle of your arm to get a little bit more of a stretch. The good thing about these stretches is there's not any necessarily way that you have to do it. As long as you're engaged, you can kind of play with what feels good for you and where you feel like you're getting a good stretch. And you can. Now this is a really good stretch for a lot of runners, a lot of people who are doing a lot of extension-based exercises. So, like I said, a lot of people are outside doing a lot more running and walking and different things, and that's going to create a lot of extension. So this is a good one to help develop some of that extension. And we can do the other side. Oh.
That was a great one. And just taking our time and holding it for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
So.
this is a nice one. Yeah, this is probably one of the most exercises that I prescribe to people is a hip flexor stretch.
I know you showed this to us before, but I've forgotten it.
Yeah,
So
it's a good one too, especially with kickboxing, all of the different angles of kicks we're doing, like the round kicks, the front kicks, it's really helping open up the hips. It's a good warm-up stretch for people who are lifting or running or anything like that. Now the next hip exercise I'm going to show is a 90-90 sit. So this is one that a lot of us can do while we're at home. It's sitting on the ground and really working on the internal and external rotations of our hips. So what you're going to do is I'm going to start with my left leg forward. You're going to bring your front leg into a 90 position, and then you're going to bring your trail leg into a 90 position back. This one okay on the And some of us are going to have our 90s a little bit further away. For me, I'm a little bit more comfortable with mine a bit closer together. So it's wherever you're comfortable. And so you want to try to have both sit bones on the ground as close to the ground as you can. Now the first thing I have a lot of my patients do is just practice sitting like this at home without any movement. Just spend a little bit of time at home on the ground while, right now while we're all at home watching Tiger King or all of these other shows on Netflix, you can spend some time on the ground sitting like this. So you can try sitting 2 minutes on each side, and this is a good way to open up the hips. The other thing we can do now is start to explore our movement in this way. So one of the things I have a lot of people do is just kind of scan the ground around you. So nothing specific, just kind of play around and see how far you can go around each side. And do it a couple times, going each way.
Harder to go in front.
It is much harder to move. So our front leg here, what we're working on is external rotation, and our back leg, we're working on internal rotation. So now to stretch some of our external rotation, it's kind of like a pigeon in yoga. What we can do is actually bring our chest towards our front leg. And just kind of sit in this position for a little bit. Same thing, just like in pigeon pose, you can sit in it anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Now, if you do start feeling numbness or tingling or anything like that in your leg, get out of the position, shake it out, and redirect your angle and slowly come back in. Now we can sit here for a few seconds. Good. Now what we can do is we can kind of turn our angle towards our back leg where we're working on internal rotation. And this is one that I find, this one might feel a little bit tighter than the front leg. Okay? Now this one you don't have to lean into it at all, you're just going to sit over it like this. And one of the things that I always do when I do this stretch at home on myself is I'll apply a little bit of pressure into my hip. Very light pressure, you don't need a lot. And the muscle that sits on the top of the hip is called the tensor fascia lata. So it sounds like a Starbucks order, but it's also called the TFL. And what I do is I'm not putting a lot of pressure, I'm not trying to dig anything out or anything like that. I'm just applying some pressure with my thumb and a little circular motion, almost like a little massage on the area just to get some blood flow into this back hip, because I'm not trying to force a stretch or anything like that. Just sitting in this position, I'm sure a lot of you guys are feeling it enough. So same thing for a couple minutes, I'll just apply some pressure into my hip, give it a little, get some blood flow going. So you can use your thumb, you can use the front of your finger pads, and just get some blood moving in that hip while we're sitting in this position. Then what we can do is we can rotate to the other side. So for the sake, I'm going to show you, but for the sake of the camera, I'll turn and face. But what you can actually do is place your hands down and switch like that to the other side. I'm going to rotate towards the camera, and we'll do the other side. So same thing, scan the ground, get some motion in the hips.
Very hard to get motion in the hips when I'm so tight from yesterday.
Wow.
Did that video on pause?
Good, and then we'll go down and we'll hold this for a little bit here, so we're nice and evened out.
I gotta say, this is a top stretch for me. I love this one.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is, I think, most people's favorite one is the pigeon stretch. Good. And same
But this
thing.
also like alleviate a little tension in my back.
Yeah, so there's a physiotherapist in the States named Greg Cook, and he has a few pretty good movement books. And he has this quote that I really love, and it says, "The eyes are the window to the soul, but the hips are the window to the low back." So anyone who has low back issues, working on your hips is going to tremendously help your low back pain. So anyone out there who's having low back pain, working on your hips is something you should be consistently doing daily. Strengthening them, doing mobility work on them is really, really going to benefit your low back pain.
Now, do our hips get tighter through age, or just through not moving a lot, through exercise, or just a combination?
It could be a mix of everything. So sometimes, like I always say, a lot of people's pain comes from repetitive stress, whether it be repetitive of doing the same activities or repetitive of not doing the same activities. So it's a lot of people who are not using their hips are going to start losing that motion. And there's research out there. It's been proven sitting in a low, deep squat every day is reducing hip arthrosis. So everybody doing those yogi squats where you're sitting in the low squat, if you do that 30 seconds a day and build your way up, that's going to significantly reduce your hip arthrosis. So doing these type of things and keeping the hips moving and loose. You can do all of the activities. You can run, you can cycle, you can do all of these things that are stressful to the hips, but as long as you take the counter time to do this type of work, you'll
And our members, we learned that stretch with Nana from Moto. We did that stretch. I know I couldn't get out of it after a minute, but what a difference.
Yeah.
So I'll remember to bring that one back in.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. If I ever do, anybody who has taken class with me, if I ever do get here on time, you'll see me sitting in that stretch before class starts. And the fun one about this one too is you can kind of play with it on the ground here. You can do it actively. You can use your hands as a kickstand, or like Krista's doing without your hands down, and you can, after you've stretched them out, and it helps activate them. And it's a really good warm-up. Now what we'll do is we'll move into the shoulders a bit. I'm going to use this as a balancer. If you don't have one, that's fine. You don't necessarily need it. So
Can they use a wine bottle, or is that too
they can
rough?
use a wine bottle. If you have cans that you can stack up, that will help. You know, whatever you have at home. So this one is a shoulder mobility exercise. You can do this against the wall. For purposes today, I'm going to show you on the ground here. The wall allows you to not cheat as much, but that's okay. We'll do that this way today. So you're going to go into a kneeling position, and this you can use as a balancer. You may not need it, but I'm showing it with it. And what we're going to do, I'll go this way. So we're going to work on shoulder rotations. So you're going to bring your hand with your thumb up, and your palm is going to be facing you. And what we're going to do is you're going to keep your torso nice and straight, and you're going to raise your arm up in a circle. And you're going to once you get to your highest point of shoulder flexion, for some people that may be here, for some people that may be here, and that's okay. We want to avoid arching into our back. We want to be able to keep our torso as neutral as possible. It's not going to be perfect, and that's fine. It's just as much as possible. Once you get to your highest point of flexion, you're going to flip your hand with your palm facing out, and you're going to continue your circle back and try your best. I know it's harder without the wall here. You may cheat a bit, and that's okay. And you're going to bring your arm down nice and slow and controlled. And you're going to bring it to your side with your palm still facing out, and then you're going to flip it back in. And then you're going to go again.
Why is this so much harder going slow?
Because it's kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning there. It's the being able to actively control the motion for mobility versus flexibility. So it's easier to move quicker.
I know Remelia just joined. She did all your lower back hip stretches.
And now we can even reverse it. So you can go palm out.
This is much harder.
And the wall kind of gives you a gauge of how you're improving, because you'll be able to see how close you can get to the wall versus how far. So even, and you can make a video after we put on, and we can practice these. So usually I tell a lot of my patients to do this 5 to 10 times on each arm, each way. This is a really good warm up for your shoulders if you're lifting.
This is where it's tough right here.
Right there. And some of us trying to keep our torso straight, when we're coming back, your angle may be over here, and that's fine. It's wherever you're comfortable. And we can do this on the other side too. And face that palm out.
Especially because we're always punching, our
Mhm.
shoulders are getting used, and this is why this one's super important
good.
for us.
And a lot of boxing, we're engaging a lot of our deep scapular stabilizers, which you don't require as much engagement for a lot of traditional working out, but in boxing we're engaging a lot more deeper musculature in the shoulders. So keeping our shoulders nice and mobile and engaged is you're gonna see your impact score is going up with more engagement. All right, and then do we want to do?
I know a couple of the questions was, I forgot who asked it. Maria asked for hips.
Okay, so we did a lot of hips today, Maria. If you have any more questions with hips, they have me tagged in the post. Feel free to DM me on Instagram, and we can get into more what's going on with your hips.
She had a little bit more clicking
on the
hips.
So we did a lot of hip stuff, and just feel free to message me, and we can talk about more specific things we can do for your particular.
I can see that Michelle, it is a great question, is because our traps, like we are constantly working on all our chamber muscles through our crosses. So any tips there?
Yeah, so with the traps, that's a really good one, because a lot of us too with boxing and just daily stress, a lot of us will start to bring our shoulders up towards our ears. So what we want to do is we want to drop them down. We don't want to wear our shoulders. I always say you have nice shoulders, but you don't want to wear them as jewelry. So don't wear them as your earrings and just let them drop down. So just focusing on that, number one, is going to help. Even when we're in times of stress, we do that. Number two, you can use your ball here, and you can use it against the wall, or you can use it on the floor. For today's purpose, we'll use it on the floor. And our traps, they actually go from the base of our skull down to our shoulder and down our back up to about there. So the trap's a really big triangle muscle there. And what we can do is we can actually use our ball, and you can place it right kind of in that meaty part of the trap, and you can lay down on it. So just like the feet, you don't need a ton of pressure, and you can kind of do some gentle head movements with it.
I've
Moving
never
it to
done
the
that one, that's
side.
fantastic.
If you want to target a little bit different places, you can go a little bit lower between the spine and the shoulder blade there, and you can do some arm movement with it. Bringing your arm across, bringing your arm up. Try to support your, I usually try to support my head so I'm not causing extra stress to the neck. And this will help release a lot of the lower trap. And you can kind of play with angles of the ball. If you have a spot that's more tender, you can kind of zero in on that and apply more pressure. The same thing you can do is against the wall. So I find the wall, I can have a little bit more control of pressure versus the ground. The ground's kind of all or nothing, where the wall you can lean in more for more pressure or back off for less.
I think last time you showed us, you were going across it,
Yeah, and you
and you can roll it on the wall.
in there.
We have Sarah and Stacy asking about some lower back and maybe some upper back.
Some lower back ones. So one of my favorite ones, and this is another one that I always do in class, this one kind of gets some of the lower and the upper back together. So when you lay on the ground here, what you can do is you can bring your knee up, and you're going to let gravity kind of take it over to the side. So you're not kind of whipping your lower back over like that. You're just going nice and gentle and kind of letting the weight of the hip come over to the side. And it doesn't necessarily have to touch the ground. You're creating like a counterbalance with that leg there. And then what I do is I bring my other arm open, and it's going to help open up some of the chest. So you're getting some work in the lower back as well as in the upper. So this is one that I really like.
It's good because they're go-to stretches, right?
Yeah, and you
Have a
can play
favorite.
around with different angles of it.
I heard my hips click at the same time.
And then another upper back one that I like is a lat stretch. The lat, it's a big muscle that goes along the sides from our shoulder blade. It's a big connector of the upper and the lower back. So stretching your lats, you can kind of get a 2-for-1, because our lats is a big stabilizer when we're doing exercises. If you're doing deadlifts, if you're doing kickboxing, if you're doing any of these things, you're engaging your lats to help stabilize the shoulders and the low back. So a good lat stretch is a kneeling stretch. So you can go in this way here, and you're gonna, I'll go to the side, and you can start to bring your bum kind of towards your heels. You're gonna bring your arms out and then lean in, and then you're gonna walk it over to the side, and then lean in a bit more like that. And you're gonna feel that stretch all down the side. You can even feel it into the lower back. And same thing with any of these stretches, anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes.
Because we're constantly using these muscles all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the lat is one of the few muscles that connects our upper body to our lower body. I don't know if that helps. Again, feel free to message me. Any more specific lower back complaints, we can kind of get into it, and I can put together a little program for you to do at home.
It's cool to have such an expert as yourself, not only here with us today, but she is one of our members. We'll always see her running from work, rushing into class, and she's always smiling, so thank you very much. Do we have any more questions left for Dr. Meagan? Good morning, James. Josh? All right.
any tips?
My tip is all of the stuff we did today, we did 5 basic exercises. The challenge for everyone is to do these every day for the rest of the self-isolation and then beyond that. And like I said, hopefully we'll be kicking like Krista and Mallory by the end of this. As well as just spending some more time on the floor, like really focusing on using our hips and all of those things while we have this time to do it.
And I also want our members to try something that Megan did bring to our attention at the beginning, is maybe try a workout this week. If you can, maybe with no shoes on, maybe just with your socks or your bare feet. No, I wouldn't recommend that on your basement cold floor, but why don't you try it and then let her know maybe if it's helping or not.
Yeah, no, I think grounding your feet to the ground, you're going to get a different sensation in the workout. And even myself personally, the last few years, I don't even wear shoes when I lift weights anymore. Like I really try to go barefoot, well with socks on, and try to ground into the ground, and you get a different feeling. So this is a little challenge you guys can have at home.
Yeah, we want to keep your shoes on here.
Here,
at
yes,
school.
yeah.
All right, we want to thank everybody for joining in. Now, if you didn't have an opportunity to join us live, we all will archive this so you guys can watch it at a later date. Now again, anybody who's tuned in today, when you get back in, is Dr. Meagan has given us a stretching ball, and you know we have these at the club here too. Windsor's Chiropractic and Wellness. Give her a big hand. Thank you so much, Doctor. Bye, everybody.